I thought saving him would be the hardest part. I was wrong. The ER smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee, the kind that had been sitting on a hot plate for too many hours. My feet ached inside worn-out sneakers, and the clock on the wall read 2:17 a.m. Just another shift, just another night I was trying to survive, until the doors burst open and everything changed. Paramedics rushed in with a child on a stretcher, small, pale, too still, machines beeping too fast, voices overlapping, orders flying. But something felt off, not chaos, something quieter, something wrong. I stepped closer, my hands already moving, checking vitals, watching his breathing, listening, really listening. And there it was, the detail no one else caught, the pattern that didn't belong. "We're losing him," someone said, and the room tightened. But I shook my head. "No, you're treating the wrong thing." They didn't listen. Of course they didn't. I was just a nurse at the end of a double shift, exhausted. Invisible, but I saw it. And I couldn't unsee it. So I made a choice, one I wasn't supposed to make. One that could cost me everything. I reached for the medication, adjusted the dose, ignored the protest behind me, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the monitor. 1 second, 2, 3. The line dipped, then suddenly, it climbed. A sharp sound cut through the room as the machine stabilized. Breath returned. Color crept back into his face. And just like that, the noise stopped. Not relief, not celebration, silence. Heavy, unnatural silence. I felt it before I understood it. The shift in the air, like something unseen had just entered the room. The doors opened again, but no one announced him. No one needed to. He walked in like the space already belonged to him. Tall, composed, every step controlled. And the strangest thing, every person in that room moved without being told, stepping aside, lowering their voices. Even the doctors who never stepped back for anyone. I didn't. I couldn't. I was still standing beside the bed, my hands trembling slightly. And then his eyes found mine. Dark, steady, impossible to ignore, not angry, not grateful, just certain, like he already knew everything. He looked at the child, then back at me, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just that space between us. "You saved him," he said, his voice low, calm, like he was stating a fact, not asking a question. I swallowed, forcing my voice to work. I was just doing my job. A small pause, barely a breath. Then he stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the weight of his presence. "No," he said quietly. "You did more than that." His gaze didn't leave mine, not even for a second. "You touched something that belongs to me." My chest tightened. Something in the way he said it made the room feel smaller, like the walls had moved in without warning. I opened my mouth, but no words came. And then he added, softer, almost thoughtful, "Which means you're not leaving my world now." And in that moment, I understood something I couldn't explain. Saving that child didn't just change his life. It changed mine, and not in a way I could walk away from. The room did not breathe again after he spoke. It waited, like everything inside it had learned to listen to him first. I felt it in the way the nurse beside me stopped writing, in the way the doctor avoided eye contact, in the way even the machines sounded quieter, like they understood something I did not. I forced my hands to move, checking the child again, focusing on what I could control, steady breaths, stable pulse, something real, something normal, because nothing about the man standing behind me felt normal. "He needs monitoring for the next 12 hours, I said, keeping my voice level, professional, like this was still my space, like I had not just stepped into his. A pause followed, not disagreement, not approval, just silence stretching too long. Then I felt it, his presence shifting closer, not touching, but close enough that I could sense the warmth of him, the quiet authority that did not need to be loud. "You are thorough," he said, almost like he was observing something interesting, not complimenting me, not questioning me, just noting it. I swallowed, forcing myself not to step back. "That is my job," I replied, the words sounding smaller than I intended. His shadow moved across the floor beside me, and then he stepped past, finally looking at the child. His expression changed, just slightly, something softer, something human, there for a second before it disappeared again. Replaced by control, by distance, by something that felt untouchable. "He should not have been here," he said quietly, more to himself than to me. I frowned. the words catching my attention. What do you mean? I asked before I could stop myself. That was the mistake. I realized it the second the question left my mouth. The room stilled again, not because of fear, but because I had crossed a line I did not even see. His gaze returned to me, slower this time, more deliberate, measuring. It means, he said, each word precise. You saved a life that was not meant to be found. My chest tightened, confusion mixing with something colder, something sharper. I glanced at the child, then back at him. He is just a kid, I said, softer now, more careful. He deserves to live. Another pause, longer this time. And then something unexpected happened. The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but not cold either, something almost approving. That is exactly why this just became complicated, he said. I felt it then, not fear, not yet, but awareness, like stepping onto ground that looked solid but was not, like realizing too late that the world I knew had edges I had never seen before. You should go home, one of the doctors said suddenly, his voice tight, almost urgent. You have been here too long. I knew what he meant, even if he did not say it out loud. Leave, before this becomes something you cannot walk away from. I nodded slowly, pulling off my gloves, my hands steadier than I felt. I turned toward the door, every instinct telling me to leave, to forget this, to go back to a life that made sense. But just before I stepped out, his voice followed me, calm, certain, impossible to ignore. Emily. I froze. My name in his voice felt different, heavier. I turned back slowly, my heart beating just a little faster. Get some rest, he said, his eyes holding mine. Tomorrow, everything changes. I should have walked away. I should have ignored him. But something in the way he said it, not a warning, not a threat, but a promise, made it impossible to pretend this was over. And as I stepped into the hallway, I realized I was not leaving his world. I was already inside it. I should have slept, that is what normal people do after a shift like that. Go home, take a shower, collapse into bed and forget the night ever happened. But nothing about that night felt normal anymore. The city outside looked the same, streetlights glowing, cars passing, the quiet hum of early morning traffic. But it all felt distant, like I was watching it through glass. I kept hearing his voice in my head, calm, certain. Tomorrow, everything changes. I told myself it was nothing, just exhaustion, just adrenaline refusing to settle. But deep down, something in me knew better. I barely made it through the front door of my apartment before the silence hit me. Heavy, unfamiliar. I dropped my keys on the counter, the sound too loud in the stillness. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I froze, staring at it like it might already know something I did not. Unknown number. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. I exhaled slowly, telling myself not to be ridiculous, until it buzzed again. Same number, this time I answered. Hello? My voice sounded smaller than I expected. There was a pause on the other end, not empty, just quiet, controlled, and then I heard it. You left without saying goodbye. My heart skipped. I did not need him to say his name. I knew exactly who it was. I did not realize I needed permission. I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. There was a faint shift in his breathing, almost like amusement. You do not, he said. But it would have been polite. I let out a quiet breath, leaning against the kitchen counter, grounding myself. Your son is stable, I said, focusing on what mattered, what was real. He needs rest. Observation. Nothing more right now. Another pause, longer this time. He is already somewhere safer, he said, and something in the way he spoke made my chest tighten. You moved him? I asked, unable to hide the surprise. I do not leave important things unprotected, he replied, and there it was again, that word, important, not patient, not child, something else entirely. I pushed off the counter, pacing slowly, trying to shake the feeling creeping up my spine. Why are you calling me? I asked, finally, directly. Silence answered me for a moment. Then, because you are part of this now, he said simply, like it was obvious. Like it was already decided. I am a nurse, I said, sharper this time. I helped a patient, that is all. A soft sound came through the line, not quite a laugh, but close. You keep saying that, he replied, as if it changes anything. My grip tightened around the phone, frustration mixing with something I did not want to name. Then explain it to me, I said. Explain why saving a child suddenly means I am involved in whatever this is. Another pause, and for the first time his voice shifted, not softer, but more serious, more real, because that child was not supposed to survive long enough for anyone to notice. The words settled heavily between us, my mind racing, trying to understand, trying to connect pieces I did not have. What are you saying? I asked quietly. I am saying, he replied, each word deliberate, that someone will realize he is still alive. My breath caught. And when they do, they will ask how. A chill ran through me, slow and steady. And that leads to me. I whispered, more to myself than to him. Yes, he said, no hesitation, no doubt. It leads to you. I closed my eyes for a second, the weight of it pressing down, the realization settling in. This was not over, it had only just begun. What happens now? I asked, barely above a whisper. His answer came immediately, calm, certain, inevitable. Now, he said, I make sure nothing happens to you. My eyes opened slowly, my heart beating just a little faster, not from fear this time, but from something more complicated, something I did not understand yet. And then he added, almost like a promise, whether you want me to or not. I did not sleep. Not really. I lay there staring at the ceiling while the city slowly woke up outside my window, the faint glow of sunrise slipping through the blinds, turning everything pale and unfamiliar. My phone sat on the nightstand beside me, silent now, but it felt louder than any alarm, like it was waiting, like something was already in motion. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was letting one strange night get into my head. But then I heard it, a car door closing outside, sharp, deliberate. I frowned, pushing myself up, moving quietly to the window, just enough to peek through. The gap in the blinds, a black SUV sat across the street, engine running, tinted windows reflecting the morning light. It could have been anyone. It should have been nothing, but my chest tightened anyway, because I knew. I just knew. I stepped back slowly, forcing a breath. You are being dramatic. I whispered to myself, trying to sound convincing, trying to believe it, but the feeling did not go away. It settled deeper, heavier. I grabbed my bag, moving through my routine on autopilot. Shower, clothes, shoes, everything normal, everything controlled, because if I kept moving, maybe I could pretend this was still my life. I reached for the door, hesitated for half a second, then opened it. The hallway was empty, quiet, just like always. I stepped out, locking the door behind me, and when I reached the street, I did not look at the SUV, not directly. I walked past it like it did not exist, like I did not feel eyes on me, like I was not suddenly aware of every step I took, every breath I made. My car was 2 spaces down. I unlocked it, slid inside, and only then did I allow myself to glance in the mirror. The SUV had not moved, but I could feel it, the attention, steady, patient, waiting. I started the engine, pulling out slowly, merging into traffic, telling myself this was coincidence, nothing more, until I made my first turn, then my second, then my third, and it was still there, not close, not obvious, but there, always there. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel, my heart beating just a little faster. This is not happening, I muttered under my breath, but it was. I drove straight to the hospital, the familiar building rising ahead of me like something solid, something safe. I parked quickly, stepping out, moving faster than usual, the automatic doors sliding open, the sound of voices, footsteps, normal life rushing back in. I exhaled, relief washing over me for half a second, until I felt it again, that shift, that quiet change in the air. I slowed, just slightly, my eyes scanning the lobby, and then I saw him, not in a suit this time, not surrounded by people, just standing near the far wall like he had always been there, like he belonged there, like the entire place adjusted around him. Without question, Adrian Volkov. His gaze found mine instantly, like he had been waiting for that exact moment. No surprise, no hesitation, just recognition. I stopped without meaning to, my breath catching, everything else fading into the background, the noise, the movement, the world narrowing again to just him. He took a step forward, calm, controlled, closing the distance like it was nothing. Good, he said softly, as if confirming something only he understood. You made it here safely. I stared at him, my pulse loud in my ears. You had someone follow me. I said, not a question. His expression did not change, not even slightly. I had someone make sure nothing interrupted you, he corrected. And there it was again. That line he kept drawing. That control he did not hide. I shook my head. A small, disbelieving breath escaping me. You cannot just decide things for me, I said. But the words felt weaker than they should have, because deep down, I already knew the truth. He tilted his head slightly, studying me, not offended, not defensive, just certain. I can, he said quietly. Because someone else already decided you mattered. My stomach dropped, the words landing heavier than anything before. What does that mean? I asked, my voice lower now, more careful. His gaze held mine, steady, unyielding. It means, he said, you were seen before I ever walked into that room. A chill moved through me, slow and undeniable. And in that moment, I realized something worse than being watched. I realized I had been noticed, and I had no idea by who. The words did not leave my head. They stayed there, echoing, settling into places I could not ignore. You were seen before I ever walked into that room. I stared at him, trying to find something in his expression that felt human, something uncertain. But there was nothing, just calm control, like he already understood the outcome of a conversation I had not even processed yet. Seen by who? I asked, my voice quieter now, not because I was afraid, but because something deeper had shifted, something instinctive. He did not answer right away. His gaze moved slightly past me, scanning the room, not distracted, just aware, always aware. Then it returned to me, steady, focused, someone who does not like variables, he said. The words careful, deliberate. My stomach tightened. And I am a variable, I asked, almost under my breath. He nodded once, slow, certain. You changed an outcome, he replied. That makes you visible. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my thoughts aligned, trying to stay grounded in something logical, something I could understand. I saved a patient, I said, firmer this time. That is not a crime. His expression shifted, just slightly, not disagreement, not agreement, something else. Something that almost resembled interest. In your world, no, he said. In mine, it depends on who benefits. The words settled between us, heavier than anything before. I felt it then, the line between what I knew and what I was stepping into, and how thin it really was. I crossed my arms without realizing it, grounding myself, holding on to something physical. Then tell me what you expect from me, I said, direct now, no hesitation. His eyes sharpened. Not in anger, but in focus, like I had finally asked the right question. Nothing complicated, he said. You keep doing what you did. I frowned slightly, confused despite everything. You mean my job? I asked. He stepped closer, just enough to shift the air again, just enough to remind me that distance was something he controlled, not me. I mean, he said, his voice lower now, more precise. You stay where I can see you. My breath caught, subtle. But enough. I hated that reaction, hated that my body responded before my mind could catch up. That is not how this works, I said quickly, pushing back, trying to reclaim something. Anything. I do not belong to you. A small silence followed. Not tense, not uncomfortable, just still. And then, for the first time, something changed, not in his posture, not in his voice, but in the space between us, something quieter, deeper. You are right, he said, and the words caught me off guard. I blinked, confused, unprepared for agreement. I do not own you, he continued, calm, measured, but I protect what becomes connected to me. My chest tightened again, not fear, not exactly, something more complicated, something I could not name yet. And I am connected to you because of him, I said, nodding toward the direction of the child's room. He followed my gaze briefly, then looked back at me. No, he said softly. You are connected to me because you chose to act when others hesitated. The words landed differently, not like a claim, not like control, but like recognition, and somehow, that felt more dangerous. I swallowed, looking away for a second, trying to steady myself, trying to understand where this was going. And if I walk away? I asked quietly. His answer came without pause, without doubt. You can, he said, but they will not. My eyes lifted back to his, the meaning clear now, heavy, unavoidable, and in that moment, I realized something I could not undo. This was never about being chosen. It was about being noticed, and once that happened, there was no going back. I did not answer him right away, because there was nothing simple left to say. The hospital lights felt brighter now, colder, like they were exposing something I was not ready to see. I looked past him for a second, at the people moving through the lobby, nurses with clipboards, patients waiting, conversations blending into a familiar rhythm. My world, the one I understood, the one that made sense, and yet it felt distant, like I was already standing outside of it. So what? I said finally, my voice quieter but steadier than I felt. I just keep living like nothing changed. His gaze did not waver, not even slightly. No, he said. You live knowing everything has. The words settled deep, heavier than before. I let out a slow breath, trying to hold on to something solid, something real. I cannot just stop my life, I said, almost more to myself than to him. I have a job, responsibilities, people who depend on me. He watched me carefully, like he was measuring something I could not see. Then he nodded once. Then do not stop, he replied. Adapt. I frowned slightly, the word catching me off guard. Adapt to what exactly? I asked. He stepped back this time, giving me space. But somehow it did not feel like freedom. It felt like distance he chose, not distance I earned. To being visible, he said simply. I shook my head, a quiet frustration rising in my chest. You keep saying that like I understand it, I said. I do not. A brief silence followed. Then he reached into his jacket, pulling out something small, flat. A phone. He held it out to me. Take it, he said. I hesitated, staring at it, then back at him. What is this? I asked. A way for me to reach you, he replied, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And for you to reach me. I did not move. My hands stayed at my sides. I already have a phone, I said, trying to keep some control in this conversation, something of my own. His expression did not change, but his voice softened, just slightly, enough to feel different. Not one that I can trust, he said. I exhaled, tension building again. And why should I trust you? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. A pause followed, longer this time, heavier. And then, something unexpected happened. He did not answer with certainty. He did not answer with control. He answered with honesty. You should not, he said quietly, the words catching me off guard, completely unguarded. I blinked, searching his face, trying to understand. But there was no hidden meaning, no manipulation, just truth, simple and direct. Then why would I take it? I asked, softer now. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. Because, he said, when something feels wrong, you will want someone who already knows it is. My breath slowed, my thoughts shifting, something about that answer settling deeper than I expected, not reassurance, not comfort, but something close, something real. I looked at the phone again, then slowly reached out, taking it from his hand. It felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more than just a connection, like it carried a decision. He watched me for a second, then nodded once, satisfied. Good, he said quietly. I swallowed, my grip tightening slightly. This does not mean I am part of your world, I said quickly, needing to say it out loud, needing to hear it. His eyes held mine, calm, steady, unwavering. No, he said. It means my world is now part of yours. The distinction hit harder than anything before, and before I could respond, before I could find something to push back with, a nurse hurried past me, her voice urgent, cutting through the moment. Emily, they need you in room 12. I turned instinctively, my training taking over, my body moving before my mind could catch up. I glanced back once, just once, but he was already stepping away, already blending into the background like he had never been there at all. Except this time, I knew better, because even when I could not see him, I could feel it, the shift, the presence, the quiet certainty that nothing in my life would ever feel normal again. Room 12 smelled like antiseptic and anxiety, the kind that clung to the air and settled into your lungs. I pushed the door open with steady hands, forcing everything else out of my head, because this was what I knew. This was what I could control. A middle-aged man sat on the bed, pale, breathing uneven but conscious, a monitor blinking steadily beside him. Chest tightness started about 30 minutes ago, the nurse said quickly, handing me the chart. I nodded, scanning it, focusing on numbers, patterns, facts, anything that made sense, anything that felt normal. I stepped closer, offering a calm smile. I am Emily. I am going to take care of you. My voice sounded like it always did, steady, reassuring, practiced, and for a moment, just a moment, everything felt like it used to, simple, predictable, safe. I checked his pulse, asked questions, adjusted his position, small actions that grounded me. That reminded me who I was before all of this. But even then, something lingered, something just beneath the surface, like a shadow I could not quite see. The new phone sat in my pocket, heavier than it should have been. I could feel it with every movement, like a quiet reminder I could not ignore. The patient's breathing steadied, his shoulders relaxing slightly as I worked. You are doing great, I told him softly, and he nodded, trusting, unaware of anything beyond this room, beyond this moment. I envied that, more than I wanted to admit. When I finished, I stepped back, giving him space, giving myself a second to breathe. I turned toward the monitor, checking one last time. And that is when I noticed it, not on the screen, not in the numbers, but in the reflection, a figure behind me, still, silent, watching, my breath caught for half a second, my eyes flicking up, and there he was, standing just outside the glass, not inside, not interfering, just there, like he had always been, like he would always be. Adrian, his presence did not disrupt anything, no alarms, no reactions, just that same quiet control, that same awareness that seemed to bend the space around him. I turned slowly, meeting his gaze through the glass, and something in me shifted again, not fear this time, not confusion, something sharper, something clearer, understanding. He was not following me because he wanted to. He was there because he had already decided he needed to be. I stepped out of the room, closing the door gently behind me, the hallway quieter now, less crowded, giving the moment space to exist. This is too much, I said under my breath, not angry, not panicked, just honest. He moved closer, not rushed, not hesitant, just certain. It will feel that way, he replied calmly. I shook my head slightly, my hands folding across my arms again, a habit I was starting to notice. You said I could walk away, I said, looking directly at him now. But you are still here. His expression did not change, but his eyes softened, just enough to notice. I said you could walk away from me, he corrected, not from what is coming. The words settled deep, heavier than anything before. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing, trying to find something to hold on to. And what exactly is coming? I asked, quieter now, more focused. He held my gaze for a long second, like he was deciding how much to say, how much I was ready to hear. Then finally, attention, he said simply. My stomach tightened. From who? I pressed. His jaw shifted slightly, not tension, but restraint. From people who do not like losing control, he replied. I felt it then, not just the words, but the weight behind them, the implication, the reality I had stepped into without understanding it. I looked back at the room behind me, at the patient resting, at the life I knew, and then back at him, at the unknown waiting just beyond it. And you think staying near you makes that better? I asked, almost challenging. His answer came without hesitation, without doubt. No, he said quietly. I know it does. And for the first time, I realized something I could not deny. This was no longer about choice. It was about survival. And whether I wanted it or not, he had already chosen to be part of that. The hallway felt different after that. Not quieter, not louder, just heavier, like something invisible had settled into the space and refused to leave. I stood there for a moment longer than I should have, my arms still crossed, my thoughts moving faster than I could organize them. Survival. The word echoed in my head. Sharp, unfamiliar, not something I had ever associated with my life before. I was a nurse. I saved people. I followed protocols. I went home. I slept. I came back. That was my world. Simple, contained, safe. But now, nothing about it felt contained anymore. I did not sign up for this, I said finally, my voice low but steady. Adrian watched me without interrupting, without reacting, just listening, like he always did, like every word mattered even when he did not show it. No one does, he replied calmly. I let out a quiet breath, shaking my head slightly. That is not an answer, I said, a little sharper now. frustration breaking through the control I had been holding on to. "It is the only one that matters," he said. And there it was again. That certainty, that unshakable belief that things were already in motion, that this was not something I could debate or reason my way out of. I looked away for a second, pressing my lips together, trying to think, trying to find something, anything that gave me control back. "Then tell me what I am supposed to do," I said, turning back to him, more direct now, more grounded. His gaze held mine, steady, focused. "You keep doing your job," he said. "You stay predictable." I frowned, confusion mixing with irritation. "Predictable?" I repeated. He nodded once. "People who watch for change look for patterns breaking," he explained. "You do not break yours." I absorbed that, slowly, the logic behind it settling into place whether I liked it or not. "And you?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. "What do you do?" A brief pause followed, then, "I handle what you cannot see," he said. Simple, direct, and somehow that answer unsettled me more than anything else, because it meant there was more than I understood, more than I could prepare for. My phone vibrated suddenly in my pocket, not my usual one, the other one, the one he had given me. I froze for half a second. The sensation sharp, unexpected. Adrian's eyes flicked to it instantly, not surprised, not concerned, just aware, always aware. I pulled it out slowly, staring at the screen. No name, just a message, one line. "You should not have interfered." My breath caught, subtle but undeniable, my fingers tightening slightly around the phone. I did not show it to him, not right away, but I knew he already understood. I could see it in the way his posture shifted, just slightly, more alert, more focused. "They are faster than I expected," he said quietly, confirming everything without needing to see the message. I looked up at him, my heart beating just a little harder now. "This is what you meant," I said, more statement than question. He nodded once. "Yes." I swallowed, the weight of it settling in fully now, real, unavoidable. "And now?" I asked, my voice lower, steadier despite everything. He stepped closer, not enough to overwhelm, just enough to anchor the moment. His voice calm, controlled, certain. "Now," he said, "you do not face it alone." I stared at him, searching for something, doubt, hesitation, anything that suggested this could still be optional. But there was nothing, just that same unwavering presence, that same quiet promise, and for the first time, I realized something I had been resisting since the beginning. This was not about whether I trusted him. It was about whether I could survive without him, and deep down, I already knew the answer. The message stayed on the screen longer than it should have, like it was waiting for me to understand something I did not want to accept. "You should not have interfered." I read it again, slower this time, letting each word settle, feeling the weight behind it, not loud, not aggressive, just certain, like a fact that had already been decided. I lowered the phone slightly, my fingers tightening around it, and when I looked up, Adrian was already watching me, not asking, not pushing, just there, steady, present. "They know," I said quietly, more to myself than to him. He nodded once, no hesitation, no denial. "Yes," he replied, simple, direct. My chest tightened, not panic, not yet, but something sharper, something more focused. "How?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He exhaled slowly, like he had expected the question, like he had already considered every possible answer. "Because outcomes leave traces," he said. "And you changed one that was meant to disappear." I swallowed, my mind racing, trying to piece it together, trying to understand the scope of something I could not see. "So they are watching the hospital," I said, thinking out loud now, grounding myself in logic, in patterns, in something I could work with. He tilted his head slightly, almost approving. "Among other places," he replied. My grip on the phone tightened again. "And they reached me this fast," I added, the realization hitting deeper now. His expression shifted just slightly, not concern, but calculation. "That tells me something," he said. I looked at him, waiting, needing to hear it. Even if I was not ready, they were already close. He finished, the words landing heavier than anything before. I felt it then, the shift from confusion to clarity, from uncertainty to something colder, something more real. This was not random. This was not chance. This had been building long before I ever stepped into that room. "So what do I do when they send something else?" I asked, my voice steadier now, more grounded, more aware. He stepped closer again, not overwhelming, just enough to anchor the moment. You do exactly what you did before, he said. I frowned slightly, confusion flickering again. You mean ignore it? I asked. He shook his head once. No, he said. You acknowledge it, but you do not react to it. I absorbed that slowly, the strategy behind it settling into place. Because reacting shows fear, I said, more statement than question. His eyes sharpened slightly, a flicker of something like approval passing through them. And fear invites pressure, he confirmed. I exhaled, my shoulders relaxing just a fraction. Not because I felt safe, but because I finally understood the rules, or at least some of them. I looked down at the phone again. The message still there, unchanged, but no longer unreadable. I locked the screen, slipping it back into my pocket, my movements slower now, more deliberate. Then I keep working, I said, lifting my gaze back to him. He nodded once. Yes. I hesitated for a second, then added, and you stay close. The words felt strange leaving my mouth. Not a request, not quite acceptance, but something in between, something new, something I had not expected. His expression softened, just slightly, almost imperceptible. I was never planning to leave, he said quietly, and for the first time, that did not feel like control, it felt like certainty. I turned slightly, glancing down the hallway, the world continuing around us, unaware, unchanged, and yet everything felt different now, sharper, clearer, more defined. I took a small breath, steadying myself, then started walking, not away from him, not toward him, just forward, because that was the only direction left. And as I moved, I realized something that settled deep in my chest, something that changed everything. I was not just being watched anymore. I was being measured, and whether I wanted to or not, I had already stepped into the test. Walking felt different now, not automatic, not unconscious. Every step carried weight. Every sound seemed sharper, like the world had adjusted and I was just now catching up to it. I passed nurses, heard conversations, monitors beeping, carts rolling across polished floors, everything exactly the same, and yet none of it felt the same anymore. I reached the nurse station, setting down a chart I had been holding without realizing it, my hands moving on instinct, logging notes, checking updates, doing everything I had done 1,000 times before, but my mind stayed alert, aware, watching for something I could not define. The new phone remained silent in my pocket, but that silence felt louder than any alarm, like the calm before something I could not predict. Emily, you okay? A voice pulled me back. I looked up to see Sarah, one of the senior nurses, her brow slightly furrowed, concern soft but present. I forced a small smile, the kind I had perfected over years. Just tired, I said, and it was not a lie, just not the whole truth. She studied me for a second longer, then nodded, accepting it, or choosing to. Take a break if you need it, she said before turning away. I exhaled slowly, grateful for the normal interaction, for something that did not carry hidden meaning, but even that felt fragile, like it could disappear at any moment. I reached for a cup of coffee, lukewarm, bitter, grounding. I took a sip, letting the familiar taste anchor me, and that is when I noticed it. Not a message, not a call, something smaller, more subtle. The screen of the station computer flickered for half a second, so quick it could have been nothing. But I had learned something already. Nothing was just nothing anymore. I leaned in slightly, scanning the display. Everything looked normal, patient. Records, schedules, notes. But then, at the bottom corner, a line appeared, faint, almost hidden. Observed. My breath slowed, not stopping, not rushing, just controlled. I did not react, not outwardly. I kept my expression neutral, my posture relaxed, just like he had said. Acknowledge, do not react. My fingers moved across the keyboard, closing the window, reopening it. Normal actions, predictable patterns. But my mind was sharp now, focused. This was not random. This was intentional. I could feel it, the presence behind it. Not physical, not visible, but there, watching, measuring, testing. I stepped back from the computer, picking up another chart, giving myself movement, something to hold on to, and without turning, without searching, I knew he was still nearby, not close enough to draw attention, but close enough to see everything that mattered. I walked down the hallway again, slower this time, more aware, each step deliberate, each breath controlled, and as I turned the corner, I caught a glimpse of him, just for a second, standing near the far end, speaking quietly to someone I did not recognize, his posture calm, his presence steady, like nothing had changed for him at all, like this was just another day, another situation under control, and something about that grounded me more than I expected, not because I trusted him, not completely, but because he was certain, and right now, certainty was the only stable thing I had. I reached the next room, pausing. Just before entering, my hand on the door handle, my reflection faint in the glass, and for a moment, I barely recognized myself, not because I looked different, but because something inside me had shifted, something subtle but irreversible. I was still Emily, still a nurse, still someone who saved lives, but now, I was also something else, someone who had been noticed, someone who had stepped into a world that did not forgive mistakes. I took a slow breath, steadying myself, then pushed the door open, stepping inside, because no matter what was coming, one thing had not changed. I still had a job to do, and this time, I understood something I had not before. It was not just about saving lives anymore. It was about surviving the consequences of it. I closed the door behind me and let the sound seal the moment, soft, controlled, like everything else I was trying to keep contained. The patient inside the room looked up at me, unaware of anything beyond his own condition, and for a second, that grounded me again. This was real. This was simple. This was what I understood. I stepped closer, checking his chart, asking routine questions, listening carefully, my voice steady, my hands precise, every movement deliberate. And yet, even here, even in this controlled space, I could feel it, that underlying tension, like a thread pulled tight just beneath the surface. Waiting, watching, I adjusted the monitor slightly, the soft beeping continuing in a steady rhythm, reassuring, predictable, but my mind was not focused on the numbers anymore. It was on the pattern, the shift, the awareness that something was building. I finished my assessment, offering a calm nod. "You are doing well," I said, and he smiled faintly, trusting, unaware of the layers of reality just outside this room. I turned toward the door, pausing for a brief second before opening it, like I already knew something would be different on the other side. And I was right. The hallway felt quieter now, not empty, just controlled, like the noise had been turned down without explanation. I stepped out, scanning the space instinctively, and then I saw it. Not him, not Adrian, but something else, something that did not belong. A man standing near the far end, not a doctor, not staff, his posture slightly too still. His attention just a little too focused, not obvious, but enough. Enough for me to notice. My chest tightened. Not fear, not yet, but awareness. I kept walking, my pace unchanged, my expression neutral, just like before, just like I had been told. Predictable. Do not break the pattern. As I passed the nurse station again, I caught my reflection in the glass, my face calm, composed, nothing revealing the shift happening beneath, and that was when it hit me. This was not about reacting anymore. It was about performing, maintaining the version of myself they expected to see. I continued down the hallway, each step measured, each breath steady, until I felt it, that presence again, familiar now, grounded. Adrian. I did not need to turn to know he was there, but I did anyway, just slightly, just enough to confirm. He stood a few feet behind, his gaze already on the man at the far end, not surprised, not tense, just aware, calculating. I slowed just a fraction, enough for him to close the distance, but not enough to make it obvious. "You see him," he said quietly. Not a question. I nodded once, my eyes still forward. "He is not hospital staff," I replied, keeping my tone even, controlled. "No," Adrian said, his voice calm, almost too calm. "He is not." The weight of that settled between us, unspoken but clear. I exhaled slowly, grounding myself again. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice lower now, more focused. He did not hesitate, not even for a second. "You keep walking," he said. "You do not acknowledge him." I nodded slightly, absorbing it, accepting it, because at this point, there was no room left for hesitation. I continued forward, passing the man without looking, without reacting, just another nurse moving through her shift, just another moment in a routine day. But as I moved past him, I felt it. The subtle shift, the attention turning, measuring, confirming, and I realized something that sent a quiet chill through me. This was no longer about watching from a distance. This was contact, controlled, careful, but real. I reached the end of the hallway, turning the corner, stepping out of his line of sight, and only then did I allow myself a small breath, not relief, not safety, just awareness, because now I understood something I had not before. This was escalating, not loudly, not visibly, but steadily, deliberately, and whether I was ready or not, I had just crossed another line. I did not slow down after turning the corner. I kept moving, steady, controlled, just like he told me. But my mind was no longer catching up. It was already ahead, already calculating, already understanding that this was no longer observation. This was interaction, deliberate, measured, a test I had just passed without even realizing it. I reached the supply room door and pushed it open, stepping inside. The fluorescent light buzzing faintly above me, the quiet space wrapping around me like a pause I did not trust. I set the chart down on the counter, my hands finally still for a moment, and I exhaled. Not deeply, not fully, just enough to release the tension I had been holding since I stepped past him. The man in the hallway, the one who did not belong. I replayed it. In my head, his posture, his stillness, the way his attention had shifted when I passed, subtle, controlled, but undeniable. He had seen me, not just noticed, not just glanced. He had confirmed something. I felt it in my chest, a quiet realization settling in. I was no longer a possibility. I was a certainty. The door behind me opened without sound, and I did not turn right away. I already knew. You did well, Adrian said quietly, his voice low, even, like nothing outside this room existed. I picked up a pair of gloves, more for something to do than necessity, my fingers sliding into them slowly. He wanted me to react. I said, more statement than question. Adrian stepped closer, not invading, just present. Yes, he replied. Simple, direct. I nodded slightly, focusing on the movement of my hands, grounding myself. And now he knows I will not. I added. Adrian did not answer immediately, and that pause told me more than words would have. I looked up at him, my eyes narrowing slightly. That is not good, is it? I said quietly. His gaze met mine, steady, unwavering. It is not simple, he corrected. I let out a small breath, almost a humorless laugh. Nothing about this is simple, I said, and for the first time, he almost agreed without saying it. The silence between us holding that truth. I pulled the gloves off slowly, dropping them into the bin, my movements calmer now, more deliberate. So what changes now? I asked, because something had. I could feel it. He shifted slightly, his attention still sharp, still focused. But there was something else now, something more defined. They will stop watching from a distance, he said. They will start closing it. My stomach tightened, not fear, not panic, but awareness, sharper now, clearer. Closing it how? I asked. His jaw moved slightly, not tension, but restraint. They will test your boundaries, he said. Your routine, your decisions, your reactions. I absorbed that, each word settling into place. Building a picture I did not want but needed to understand. And if I do not break? I asked, quieter now, more focused. His eyes held mine. And this time, there was no pause, no hesitation. Then they will change the rules, he said. The words landing heavier than anything before. I looked away for a second, processing, adjusting, accepting. Because that was the only option left, I stepped toward the door, my hand resting on the handle, the cool metal grounding me. And you? I said without turning. You stay ahead of them. Adrian's voice came from just behind me, calm, certain. I already am. I closed my eyes for half a second, letting that settle, not as reassurance, not as comfort, but as fact. Then I opened the door and stepped back into the hallway. The world continuing like nothing had changed, but now I could see it, feel it, the subtle shifts, the invisible lines being drawn closer, tighter, and as I walked forward again, I understood something I could not ignore anymore. This was not just a situation I was in. This was something I was becoming part of, something that was shaping around me. And whether I was ready or not, the next move was already waiting. I did not stop walking, because stopping meant thinking, And thinking meant feeling everything I had been holding back. The hallway stretched ahead of me, familiar and unchanged, but I could feel it now. Every movement, every glance, every second carried weight, like the world had shifted into something sharper, something more aware. I passed the nurse station again. The same screens, the same quiet conversations. But this time I saw it differently. Not just a place of care, but a place being observed, measured, mapped. I picked up another chart, my hands steady, my posture calm. Because that was the role, that was the pattern, and breaking it was no longer an option. My phone remained silent. But I knew better now. Silence was not absence. It was patience. I stepped into another room, completed another routine check, spoke with another patient. Each action precise, controlled, exactly what they expected to see. And as I moved through it, something changed inside me, something subtle but undeniable. I was no longer reacting. I was choosing to stay composed, choosing to remain predictable, choosing to exist inside their expectations while understanding the game behind it. When I stepped back into the hallway again, I did not look for him right away. I did not need to. I knew he was there, somewhere just beyond the obvious, watching without being seen, controlling without interrupting. I reached the end of the corridor and paused near a window, the city. Outside, stretching wide, alive, normal, people moving through their lives without knowing how quickly everything could shift. I rested my hand lightly against the glass, grounding myself for a brief second, just enough to breathe, just enough to remember who I was before all of this. Then I felt it, not a sound, not a movement, just a presence settling beside me. Adrian. I did not turn immediately. I let the moment exist, steady, controlled. Then finally, I spoke. This does not end, does it? My voice was calm, not defeated, not afraid, just aware. He stood beside me, his reflection faint in the glass, his posture as composed as ever. No, he said quietly. I nodded once, the answer not surprising. Not anymore. Then I stopped waiting for it to. I said, more to myself than to him. But he heard it. Of course he did. He always did. A brief silence followed. Not uncomfortable, not tense, just real. Then he spoke again, softer this time, but no less certain. That is when you survive it. I turned, slightly, meeting his gaze, and for the first time, I did not feel like I was being pulled into his world. I felt like I was standing in it, choosing to understand it, choosing to navigate it. My grip on the chart in my hand loosened slightly, my breathing steady, my thoughts clear. You said they would change the rules, I said, watching him carefully. He nodded once. They will. I held his gaze, not backing down, not uncertain anymore. Then they should know something too, I said, my voice quiet but firm. His eyes sharpened slightly, not in warning, but in interest. And what is that? He asked. I let a small breath leave me, steady, controlled, then answered. I do not break easily. The words settled between us, not loud, not dramatic, but real. And for the first time, something in his expression shifted, not control, not calculation, something closer to respect, something earned, not given. He gave a slight nod, almost imperceptible, but enough. I know, he said quietly. And as I turned back toward the hallway, stepping forward into whatever came next, I realized something that changed everything. I was no longer just surviving this. I was becoming someone who could stand inside it. And that meant the game was no longer one-sided. It had just begun.